Hi, I'm Dr. Darlene Rossetti, the Regional Superintendent of Schools for DuPage County, and welcome to DuPage Engaged. It's a show about people who make a difference every single day in their communities, in the county, and in the state. And in the process of highlighting these individuals, we're hopeful that we will inspire you to do more, to want more, and to be more for your communities, your state, and your country as well. And it can be anyone who wants to volunteer and be civically engaged. Some of you may remember, if you saw me last month, we talked about volunteer opportunities. We talked about this year being the year of volunteerism and civic engagement. So we are focusing this entire year just on volunteerism and civic engagement and those people who do make a difference in this arena. I'm excited today to really talk about something that's extremely important to me and important to many folks out there. And we've focused, as I had mentioned, on volunteerism, which is an important part of civic engagement. We have coming up next Tuesday, a week from today, we have a local election. And I do emphasize local election because it is probably one of the most important elections that we can get engaged in. We need to pay attention to who the candidates are, because these candidates will make a difference in your life. It will impact your tax dollars. And so what do we need to be doing if we want to be more civically engaged and we want to be more active within our communities, particularly in the civic world? And I'm very excited today to have someone with us that really has devoted, though he's young, way younger than I am, but he has really devoted his life to working with young people and working with civic education, civic engagement, and really motivating people. You're going to hear a lot about the work that he's been doing right now at the state level, and I think it's going to be very impactful work. And your title, and let me see if I can get this right, your title is Civic Education and Engagement Scholar for the McCormick Foundation. Am I correct? Close enough?
Yeah,
tell me the exact title.
It's a Civic Learning Scholar.
Okay, yeah. Civic Learning Scholar. So tell me what that means, a Civic Learning Scholar.
Sure. So I'm particularly interested in how young people develop civically, how they learn about politics, and the thrust of my research has been in what schools can do to foster young people's civic knowledge, skills, and dispositions, with the hope that they're informed and effective engaged citizens throughout life.
Can I ask you something? I want you to jump in right away. Why is this important?
It's important because if we talk about democracy, it means the people govern. And we have pervasive evidence that in a lot of ways our civic space has shrunk. And there's some huge concern with our youngest people, and I'm not here to disparage young people,
right.
But fantastic, exactly. And if we talk about volunteering, for example, actually our young people are doing better than past generations. But if we talk about things like voting in local elections, our millennials in Illinois are 47th in the country on that measure. If we talk about do you speak with neighbors, do you work with neighbors to solve problems in the community, we're bottom 10 in the country on those measures. So that's a huge cause for concern. And then if we talk about the state of our democracy in Illinois, where 70% of people don't trust state government, and then we don't even need to talk about some of the fiscal challenges our state faces. We need our young people, and frankly, we need our whole citizenry more than ever before. So that's why this issue is so important.
And I can certainly see your passion, and I know that your work with the McCormick Foundation is extremely important to you. Tell me a little bit about the McCormick Foundation and then the role that you play there.
Sure, thank you. So Robert McCormick was the editor and publisher of the Chicago Tribune. He died actually 60 years ago, next month in April. And our foundation really is his legacy, and we're committed to fostering communities of educated, informed, and engaged citizens. And we do that a variety of ways. We have philanthropic programs, Cantini Park, of course, in Wheaton. There are a couple museums there. And through that, we develop citizen leaders, and we really work to make life better in our communities.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
And so, and how long have you been with the McCormick Foundation?
So this will be 10 years in
Wow.
July. Yeah,
And
so
it's
been.
And before that, Sean, tell us what you did.
I was a high school teacher. Started my career in Wisconsin, but ended my very brief career in DuPage County at community high school in West Chicago. And lo and behold, I was a civics teacher. So,
Very good, very good. Tell me a little bit about your latest initiative. What are you working on right now?
So I've been privileged over the course of the last year or so to chair a statewide task force on civic education. And we were charged with looking at the state of civic education in Illinois, what works in other states, what are best practices in civic education, and most importantly, what would we recommend we do to change policy and funding in this issue area. And our big ask was, let's teach civics. We're one of 10 states that doesn't require our young people to take a civics or a government course to graduate. I've run the numbers. Almost half of Illinois students attend high schools where civics or government is not required. And we think that's unacceptable going back to some of those problems I described at the outset.
No, very good. And now I understand that there's some legislation that has also been introduced. Do you want to talk about that?
Right. Yeah. There's a couple of bills. One, HB 4025, House Bill 4025, sponsored by Representative Deb Conroy, who also represents DuPage County, would create a high school civics course. And then there's a companion bill, House Bill 4024, that would create a statewide system of professional development for teachers to support implementation and ongoing teaching of civics in Illinois.
Why do you think we haven't been paying? I love this state. You're from this state. We want to both continue to make it better and better. Obviously, we see civics as a way to, continue to move that forward as well. Why do you think we're one of the 10 states that has not, does not have civics as a graduation requirement?
And I don't think it's deliberately trying to exclude civics, and you know this better than I do, but it seems like historically our state actually has not asked a lot of our schools. There's been a lot of local control, and that's not a bad thing.
Sure.
And in fact, I think if we're successful in gaining a civics course requirement, a lot of how it's taught in terms of content, in terms of pedagogy, curriculum should still be determined by local schools and districts. And we have all kinds of schools in DuPage County and throughout the state who are doing this incredibly well. So it's really just leveraging some of the great examples that are already in place. But going back to 4 in 10 schools in Illinois don't offer this, and that equates to almost half of our students.
What kind of feedback are you getting?
So very positive feedback. I think one notion was there was a surprise even among legislators that this wasn't required. But then obviously anytime there's a new imposition on schools, there's concern about funding. And so the whole notion of an unfunded mandate.
Yes.
I'm lucky, I work for a philanthropic organization that has committed money to support civic education in schools for a long time, and has worked with the funding community to raise additional dollars that would support teacher training and implementation of this course. So our argument is this is not an unfunded mandate because private funds will support implementation.
Very good. All right, we're going to be back with Dr. Sean Healy and talk a little bit more about, maybe a little bit about this election coming up, why this is important, and how people can get engaged in it as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
How do you feel about your commute these days? A little crabby? You can change that pretty easily. Just take Pace and feel happy as a clam. The savings will be a big change too. Travel in a more relaxing Pace.
A picture-perfect lawn may look harmless, but its effects can be a real horror show. rain washes fertilizer, bug and weed killers off your lawn, down ditches and drains, and into our rivers, where they can be toxic to wildlife and pollute our water. So cut back on lawn chemicals. Mow higher, leave the clippings, and enjoy a beautiful, healthy, safer lawn.
Hi, welcome back to DuPage Engaged, a show about volunteerism and civic engagement. We are here today with Dr. Sean Healy, and he is the Civic Learning Scholar for the McCormick Foundation.
Yes, thank you.
We want to talk now a little bit about this little election that's coming up on Tuesday, April 7th. Now, mindful of the fact we know that you can early vote, that you can also absentee ballot vote, so there's no reason anymore not to vote. I do believe, Sean, that in the last municipal election, we only had about 15% of the voters come out.
Right, very low turnout election.
Very low turnout.
Yeah,
and it's, and so I know a lot of the work that you're doing is directly related to this. How do we get people more engaged in the civic process?
Right.
And obviously voting is one
Right.
way to, to do
Right.
that. And so I know it's only a week away, but even if people right now wanted to, get more engaged and,
Sure.
and volunteer,
Sure.
in the civics process, voting being one of them, what would you say to them right
Yeah,
now?
voting's the obvious one. I think it's a good place to start. So if we talk about civic engagement, it's actually the most common thing people do. But it's kind of ironic. The election we vote in is the presidential election, which is the farthest removed from us. And then we see the lowest turnout as we go down to state level elections, and then the lowest of lowest municipal elections. But these are the elections that impact us most. So yeah, there's lots of ways to get involved beyond the vote. And you talked about you can early vote, you can absentee vote now. You can register people to vote. You can be actually deputized to register people to vote if you're 18 years old. There's actually legislation filed in Springfield this session to allow 17-year-olds to be deputized to register voters. You can serve as an election judge, and you actually get paid to do that. And Illinois law permits young people to serve as election judges, and I know DuPage County has a fantastic election judge program that draws on high school students throughout the county. So lots of ways to engage. And then the other obvious one is volunteering on campaigns. And it's particularly at the local level. I mean, we're not talking about paid advertisements like we're seeing in the city of Chicago. It's door-to-door canvassing. It's putting yard signs out. It's making phone calls. So it's kind of grassroots campaigning, but lots of opportunities, particularly for young people, to get involved. It's something I did at a young age, and there's an excitement, even though it's not glamorous, but an excitement in being part of democracy, whether it's working on a campaign, serving at the polls, or even casting a ballot on election day.
So anyone can volunteer to
Absolutely, yeah. Opportunities abound for volunteering. So certainly a plethora of nonprofits throughout DuPage County, so the soup kitchen, the food pantry, the obvious. Actually, most volunteering that happens in America is through churches. So if you're engaged in whatever your religious institution is, there are likely opportunities to serve the community. And then as we talk about young people, our schools are a great venue by which service occurs, both connected to classes, so service learning, but also through extracurricular, so sports teams and clubs. Some are geared specifically towards community service, and it's a great entry for young people into a lifetime of volunteering.
I don't know if you know this or not, Sean, but do we have service learning in our schools, in our high schools? And well, answer that and then.
Sure. So yes, we have service learning. We have good examples of service learning. It's probably not as prolific as we'd like it to be. A lot of what folks, I think it's often mislabeled. They'll say something service learning, but it's not linked to the curriculum. So an example I like to use is, it's not just serving in the soup kitchen, but it's asking why we need a soup kitchen. It's studying the underlying issues, poverty, homelessness, et cetera. So there's not enough of that, but it's not to say there are really good examples of schools that do it well. There are organizations that support it. But as we look at best practices in schools. It's one I think that's lacking in comparison to some others.
And is that encouraged? Let's just say that we do, that our legislators are really smart people, which we know they are, that they're going to pass the civic education bill, okay? And that would service learning be a component of that?
Yeah, so the legislation as it's written right now encourages service learning. And in fact, I talked earlier about our task force and recommendations. And in this current era, we talk a lot about tests, and they say if you don't test it, you don't teach it.
Right.
And we recommended that there actually be service projects as an assessment. So really getting out in the community, and that's what democracy is about. It's about getting your hands dirty. It's about practicing the instruments of democracy, and service learning is a great embodiment of that.
Good. So I know I asked you, can anyone volunteer? So young people, old people, anyone, not old people, there's only seasoned people, okay?
Right.
So anyone can volunteer, and there's lots of opportunities for that. Go online, they can go to Election Commission, talk to people in their schools, talk to their municipalities, for opportunities there. Look up the candidates, even look up candidates, what does that person, resonate with them? Is this someone that they'd like to have a conversation with?
Absolutely.
And do some of that. What particular skills do you believe are necessary?
Well, so the great thing about volunteering is often it doesn't rely on a major skill set. I'd say the one commonality is it's great to have people skills, because usually you're serving with somebody else, and usually you're serving the publics in a general sense. So there's some face-to-face, some interaction. I would say it's actually the reverse, that by volunteering, you develop skills. And in so doing, and there's research that proves this, that by volunteering, you develop skills, you make yourself more marketable. It's actually easier to find a job because you build these networks. And here's the big one, I think, that kind of carries the day. If we look at the last recession, the Great Recession, communities that had high rates of volunteerism had lower unemployment rates. They did a better job of weathering the toughest economic times of our life. So it really speaks to the power of volunteering. So it's a great avenue to develop skills that are marketable for a career.
Yeah, I like just what you said too, because I know our current government and our current new administration really is less reliance on government, and because government can't be everything to everybody. And I think in a county like DuPage, we have so many wonderful people out here. You know what I mean? That that are willing to. I think sometimes they just don't know where to go, or or what to do. So what about the time commitment? Is there a big time commitment? So start if you were in a classroom talking to kids, and you wanted students in particular to get more engaged in a in a political activity or a civic activity or making a difference in their community. What type of a time commitment? Because they lead busy lives.
Right. Well, so it varies. It varies, and I think flexibility is the word, and the other piece is because you're not on the clock. In a lot of ways, you determine your schedule, but there are some reciprocal agreements with volunteers. So one measure that we take of volunteerism is we try to measure the number of volunteers that put in 50 hours a year or more, so about an hour a week. That's about a quarter of us do that. So reality is most volunteering is more episodic in nature, and that's okay. We live busy lives, and I would say collectively every little bit helps. It adds up. So flexibility is a word. Some people build it in. It's part of their regular routine. Sometimes it's just occasionally you're working at the soup kitchen over Thanksgiving. I would say it's all a net positive.
Sure. I know. Last time we were here, we had a group of students that called the PADS band, and they volunteer their time, and they do a couple hours on Saturdays, twice a month. So again, it's using your skills and your talents, and how do you want to give back and stuff though too. So good. I guess I'd like to ask you too very quickly, why did you get involved?
Well, so as a young person, I was fascinated by politics, and that never went away. I went and studied political science all the way up, and I had a passion for it, and I said, okay, what do I do with this? And my idea was become a teacher, and my
the
thought
ultimate
was,
service.
yeah, my thought was, I really think that is the case, and my thought was that passion would translate to my students, and I think in a lot of ways it did. Some kids maybe not, they thought I was crazy for watching C-SPAN. And then, frankly, I've been at the McCormick Foundation for 10 years, and it's a philanthropic organization. It's really committed to its employees being engaged. So most of us are on nonprofit boards. I'm on many myself.
So you do a lot of volunteering yourself.
They match donations. Donations matter too. It's nice to do the grunt work, but dollars. They give us service. They give us time off to volunteer.
That's excellent.
So in a lot of cases, employers can really make this easier and create a space for that.
Let's explore that when we come back. All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Dear Mom, I don't know how to start saying something like this. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have gone to the party. I've entered a world I don't want to be a part of. I'm in hell, Mom. A nightmare, and I need you to help me. I'm so afraid it's too late. Everything spiraled out of control. I want to be your little girl again. I love you, Mom, and I don't know where to turn.
Dear baby girl, I wish I could have helped you. You would have never done anything, ever, for me to hate you. I just wish I could hold you in my arms and tell you it's all going to be okay, that we can just go back to the way it was. I love you, and I'd do anything to hold you in my arms one more time. Love, your Mom.
And we are back with Dr. Sean Healy with the McCormick Foundation. And we stopped our conversation. We were talking about volunteerism and what can people do. And we ended a little bit, and I'd like to revisit this. What can employers do to encourage volunteerism and civic engagement?
Sure. So the basic one is using dollars to support employees, give gifts to nonprofits, so matching dollars, service days. Another great opportunity where provide employers time away from work to volunteer, even coordinating service opportunities, so not necessarily forcing people to do this, but saying, hey, you got a day off the job if you go out and serve in the community. So yeah, really being part of the fabric of the surrounding community.
So we'll have to get to some of the chambers and some of the business councils and things like that to get out there and encourage. And let me ask you this too, Sean. What do you think right now, because as you know, you and I have known each other a while. I too am a great supporter of civic education, civic engagement. I think the future belongs to our youth, and the more we can get them engaged and informed about our government and on the really important things that matter. How can we continue to get support from our community to support a civics graduation requirement?
Sure.
What advice do you have?
Well, reach out to your legislators and say this is important. And then I would also say the community is a great resource for our schools. So guest speakers, giving students the opportunity to serve in the community. So the best civics education is the community, because that's what civics is. So it's a little bit of both. Tell your legislators to vote for this legislation, but support the schools in doing this.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate all that you do. Your passion shows, your commitment, and we just need a lot more folks like you out there.
Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for your commitment to this issue.
I appreciate it. No, thank you, and thank you. And I just want to thank all of our guests that are out there, and don't forget to volunteer. Give your time, give your talents. You know what? It matters. It'll matter to you as well. Thank you very much.